What's up, good people? This is an overview of everything that I talk about, the most important things, at least. What I get into is salt, the inorganic world, the plasticization of consciousness and of literal physical world, seeing where things belong, such as the difference between what the organic world is offering and what the inorganic world is offering, as the organic world and inorganic kind of represent the masculine and feminine principles when we're talking about chemistry, meaning dead and living. And this has to do with matter and why Ma is matter in the material world. And we'll get a little deeper into that. It's for people that have not paid attention to my earlier work, that don't know what I'm talking about. We'll get into understanding Ma as the illusion and what matter is and what death is. But the most basic thing that I want to regurgitate and really put out there again and again is that the body is a living system, and we need to imbue it with living things. We need to either remove the death from the system and let it function as it would, which is the highest level of my teachings, or in the meantime start putting more living things in, because everyone's still putting dead things in their body. We're putting dead things in our body all of the time. We're putting a lot of elements in the body that we shouldn't, especially in cities. And this gets into negative and positive ions. This gets into a lot of the work that Dan Winter gets into, and looking at structures and how they're built and what they're made of and what their use is. Looking at things from a different level. And the basic way of breaking down the two levels, and it's only two things, is you have what they talk about, you can't serve two gods. It's the living God and the dead God. That's all it's talking about. You can't, the higher consciousness and the lower receiving world. It's Julius Caesar beneath your feet and Jesus Christ in your brain. It's the masculine electric consciousness in the air and the feminine earthly magnetic dense world of illusion and structure. The inorganics is the feminine. You can't serve both. And what that means is that if you're out here serving the dead world, the dead inorganic world, then that's where it will lead you. What does that mean? It means that if you are a materialist, then you'll go the way of material. Material just gets broken down, pulled apart, reused. It's all illusory. But it comes out of the mask, the higher mind. The higher mind, as the metaphysician knows, creates this world. So this dead world that we live in, and again, dead is not dead in the way that you think of it. It's just what material is. The production of this entire life comes out of the living systems. The living system creates a car we know to be dead, but we get in it and it's driving around and it seems so full of life. We can look at a car that's just sitting there that isn't even moving and it feels like it's full of life. Why? Because man has put his hands on it and created something, and we can see the life in that picture over there, in that car, in that whatever it might be. We can see the life in it. And so that's the idea. That's where you got to start your mind. And if we start looking at the world and looking out into the world and finding things that are already dead and thinking that's causing life to happen, we're highly mistaken. And if we take those things that are dead, if we think a car can build a human, we're confused. But a human can build a car. This gets into plasticized consciousness, artificial intelligence, and a lot deeper things. And maybe towards the end of this, I'll keep ringing this out, and we'll do this for an hour. Who knows? I might be here for 20 minutes or an hour. I don't know. So, again, if we start looking at things we're putting in our body, we'll end up like the things that we put in our body. Now, if we put dead things in our body, if we don't know already that the microwave is literally changing the atomic structure and plasticizing and changing what food looks like, it's not cooking it. It's not. It's doing something completely different. It's not doing what fire is doing. It's doing something completely different. If we don't know that we're changing the structure of the food and using um, a microwave to turn something that might have been living into something dead and then putting it in our body. We're plasticizing ourselves. We're plasticizing ourselves with all of these things that were made in a lab. This gets into why the vegan diet, meaning when vegans start to just take what's on if it says vegan on the box and they just start consuming that, that's the problem. They're plasticizing themselves. This is not only from a level of just accepting that what's in the box is good for you, but literally what's in the box isn't good for you. And it's actually made in a laboratory, made with inorganics. And those inorganics are actually causing you to be dead, of the dead world. And so, getting back to just that original concept here, is the creative force of everything is living. It's a living God, as it said. The living God. So that's saying these two gods that you serve. Like, well, one just would be doing something that's healthy, doing something that's living. That living thing is movement. It's proper air. It's proper water. It's these things that put in your body. The fruits on the tree. Those things have seeds and they're sitting there glowing and they're living, and we're consuming that. So you consume life just like that. Now, for anybody that, for whatever reason, they get on here and they're trying to detract from what I'm saying and they're meat eaters, yeah, there's a reason to consume the blood of animals. But we've even screwed that up because we took away the life action of hunting that thing on our bare feet in that environment and going through that entire ritualistic process and still consuming of all of the organs and the blood, because there's lifeblood in there. See, when we've disassociated that far and we think we need meat in this way, that we're eating it now, meaning it's factory farmed and it comes to your table and all of a sudden you're not consuming any of the blood, and now you've cooked it, and now we're so far from what, the whole practice of that. And again, I'm not telling people to go do that, because anybody that's paid attention to my work, I pretty much say, move on from get into vegetarian, move on to fruitarian, try to find yourself into pranayama and getting into breathing and fasting and understanding what urine therapy is, what your orin is, and looking even deeper into what of all of these glow-in-the-dark plants are. Get into some of my work that I've just done recently. It's talking about some really high-level things about glow-in-the-dark stuff. So I'm even going kind of the left on that. But anyways, this thing about inorganics and organics and plasticization. We are quickly finding ourselves in environments and participating with, like right now, I'm sitting here talking to a plastic device. I'm using this tool in a way that causes the reverberation of my voice. Even though it's digital on the other side, it still has remnants enough of a living, because there's a living creature on this side, so I can throw, just like they say, Reiki. I can throw Reiki through this. I'm throwing my tones and vibrations through this. And so it still is a living system. Now, if I'm like some of these other channels out here that are repeaters, you're going to find that's not living. That's not living. That's a reverberation of an inorganic source. These people are out here consuming, not only probably their diet is awful, but their diet, meaning deity, their diet of not just what they eat, but what's going into their ears. They're listening to something or reading something and then regurgitating it exactly as they've seen it. And that's a stagnant energy. That's a single waveform that is actually what death is. There's no movement in it. It's the same reason that if you turn your radio on to 96.5, you're going to hear the same set of songs on the same time every day, the same thing. Da, 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 da. And that one frequency will lock your brain consciously and physically into this certain death. That stagnation is what that is on so many levels. And getting back into these inorganics and organics, as we find ourselves connected to more closely the inorganic world. And I want to make this very clear. There's nothing wrong with the inorganic world. There's nothing wrong with the material world. Even call it illusion if you want. We can play this any way we want. I'm not suggesting we eliminate the inorganics from our life, because I don't think that's definitely not how that works. I'm all for buildings. I'm all for cities. I'm all for these things. But designing them and understanding them and creating them in a way that is holistic. And there's a lot of people that have done a lot of great work on the different types of materials and why they're not beneficial to environments. And we can talk about orgonite, we can talk about bioacoustic resonance, we can talk about different types of elements and the kind of energy that they throw off and what they're collecting, and electrosmog we can get into, so many different things. But it's just a way of putting things where they should be, where they need to be, and we're putting things out of place. We're just like, oh, here, we're like a kid that wants to build something, and all of a sudden we just set up shop somewhere, and we just start building and building and building. Before we know it, that kid that was 5 years old is now 60 and didn't even realize, because it didn't look up from its creation to go, hey, there's a big world out here. And maybe, maybe if somebody said something to the kid when he was 5, they wouldn't have built this giant city in this weird place, that it shouldn't have been so close to that thing. The feng shui actually, because feng shui is all about the flow of energy, and if we even get into it, electrons and ions and how things are fluidly moving through places, we would notice that, oh, the building shouldn't be square, and it shouldn't be made of that material, and we shouldn't put it right there, and the city shouldn't be so rectilinear, and it shouldn't be from all of these, these angles of, again, it's the masculine looking at the feminine and creating out of the feminine that dead material world, and we're using salt cubes to do it. Now, here's where I'm just going to go deeper. This is the connection to Saturn, to salt, and to the dead world and Father Time. So if you look at Father Time, it's connected to Saturn, and he's the undertaker. He's got the sickle over his shoulder, and he's always in control of time. Now, time is controlled on this dimension out of a cube or a box, and that cube is a salt cube. You unfold the cube, it's six-sided. This is your sixth day of the week. This is where you get the word sex from. This is why the sixth day of the week is Saturday. And this is where you get the word salt. You throw an L into sat, you get salt. Why? Because an L is the angle or the angel of 90 degrees. This is why in a circle, if you put 4 L's in it, you get your cross. This is that cross, which is that it's everywhere. It's the 4 elements. It crosses things into 4 things. So it takes that. So this connection to salt, this cube of time, the cubic structures that we build in, we start looking at the cityscape and the maps of the city. How are we building the blocks? We're building with blocks, literally cubes. How do we make these buildings? What are the buildings are all square. They're all rectilinear. They're using corners. And if you notice again, if you go to the corner or the corner, this is where this is where death occurs. These angles, it eats up light. It's these angels, the angels of light, the angles. So these 4 angles that you find everywhere, the 4 angels, the 4 cardinal directions, the 4 seasons, all of the 4s, the forces, all connected to building based upon a principle of death. Things could be built, and things have been built, and things are built using fluid dynamics, not just in the fluid world, but I'm saying like in the way that you see something. There's a fluidity to things. And this is what you see in the most beautiful automobiles. This is what you see in the fluidness of fabric when you look at a lot of cultures, how their clothes fall off of them versus like a very straight line that we see in these suits these days. So getting farther into the Saturn thing, the Saturn day and the salt cubes. Okay, the cube of this is why you can go to the giant cube in Mecca. It's a giant box. And now, if we get into what material it's made out of, and we get into the human beings throwing off energy, because what they're doing is they're throwing off, because we're electrical magnetic beings and we're walking around something, and they always walk around counterclockwise. They're creating an energy vortex there. We can get into what the pyramids were and all that, but let's not go too far. Let's just start with these cubes. So they've incubated systems. They've caused organic systems to fuel inorganic systems. Human beings are organic, but they're funneling that energy into an inorganic construct, meaning that box. The Kaaba. And this is where you get the word cabal, or Kabba. And this even gets into what the word Ka is, as your spirit. But it's taking spirit. It's pulling spirit into something else. We even get into what Ba is, and Baal. And Baal is the lord of the underworld. Let's just play this game for a second. Baal is the lord of the underworld. Baal, your bowels, your balls, your bile. It's what's on the ground, right? So this is where you get the word lowered Baal, or your Lord Baal, because it's lowered down into the lower regions. It's what's on the ground. This is why they say it's of Satan, or of the devil's world. It's of Baal's world. People use these interchangeably. I'm not going to go into the specific words and what's the right ones here, but we get the idea that we're talking about the plane of existence that's beneath us. And this is even why people always say the woman is the devil. Well, because the woman is Ma. The woman is matter. The womb is the birthing womb is what brings out the matter. Matter is what's underneath your feet. This is why Father comes from Most High, and Mother is the matter, and connected to the devil. This is why even you get the word Eve, or evening. The word Eve, connected to what she did wrong, apparently, was eat of the pentagram. She ate the apple. The apple is the pentagram. The pentagram is synonymous with a pen, and the pen is full of ink. I know I'm making a lot of connections here, but this is how the story goes. This is the real story. The connection is that Eve ate of the apple, or the pentagram, and your pentagram is actually your body, and your body is full of blood, and the lifeblood. This is why the blue bloods we talk about, and your blood is blue, and you're always writing with a blue ink. There's a lot of connections here. And so that pen that creates all things is your pentagram, is your body. So Eve is connected to the darkness of the evening, and this is where magic is done. And in this evening where this magic is done, it's called magic. And I'm going to jump all over the place, but I'm just going to make connections. This is some high-level things for people that are already into a lot of my other work, and I'm making some connections here, just dropping seeds. That magic is done at night. Magic is where you get the word mag, as in Mary Magdalene, or magnetic, or magistrate. All of the mags. It's all connected to the Ma. Magic. And that magic is connected to the magnetics, which is a pulling in of sorts. So you have the mags and the L's. The L's are the Elohim, or the gods that came down, and the electricity. And the L's of the angels, or the angels, the fallen angels. So this connection between what you see as the angelic understanding of electricity, the creative force from up there, and if we use that to create rather than the matter to create. See, these are the two things. These are the two things that bind together to create something. We use magic. We use the consciousness to direct the physical world. They're both completely illusory. You can't grab onto consciousness, and this physical world, comes and goes. When you move on, like, you'll understand what it is, because it's as we say, it's just we can't find anything that's actually solid. I mean, we see it as solid, but it's not as such. So they're both very illusory. But what we can see is that our mind, as the electrical, we have electricity popping off in our brain all the time, is creating within our entire body. Our body is electrical and magnetic. Our body is piezoelectric in our frames. And by using our mind, which is connected, our brain, which is connected, we're a Tesla coil basically, connected to our entire system. And this is why when we ground ourselves out in the ground, different things can happen. We're connecting the two together. We're using our consciousness to actually create our auric field and to spit out information into the ether to start creating with physical matter outside of us, to bring us things, to do the magic of the world. And the magic is connecting to the darkness. And this is why they say that all magic is done at night. This is why they get into the cave of creation is the woman's womb. You don't know where it comes from. You can't know. You won't ever know. You might dip in there once in a while, but I mean, this gets into higher levels of astral travel and astral realms, and I mean, you get in there. It doesn't mean you can bring the information back here, and somebody could show you the blueprints for everything, and this is people that have done dimethyltryptamine or different substances. Have said they've seen all of the inner workings, but there's no way to explain it. There's no way to, even if you could, you wouldn't. Just because you look at the way a giant machine works, doesn't mean you can work it. It doesn't mean you could rebuild it. You just accept, oh, there are some inner workings that go on to how everything is created, and you just accept it. And that's what the darkness means. It means it's so complicated but so perfectly built that you just go, okay, I know there's a mechanism there. All I have to do is plug myself in consciously to the organic world, to the living world, to the carbon-based systems, to the energy, and from that energy, I can create environments. And that energy that is funneling through your system creates using the inorganic world. The organic world is of a higher order. It's living. You could drop an organic thing on. You could drop an inorganic rock onto something and kill it. Yeah, this is correct. But it still would require the organic person, the organic thing to move the rock to the point of throwing it. Do you see? The organic principle is the living world, the living thoughtful world, the brain, the consciousness, the non-repetition, the creative forces. All of these things that go on in your mind are all connected to living beings. It's not a static frequency. It's ever changing. As they say, your name, you're unspeakable. If you're living, your name is unspeakable, because your vibration, meaning, amen, your name, what somebody would call you, would be a whole. It would be a whole conglomerate of all of the information and energy you're spitting off, and it's changing every second, every moment. You're changing exactly, like, have a new feeling. Look at this. I stubbed my toe. Okay, energy's going there. Oh, this person just walked by me. Oh, I love that color. And there's different ways of interacting with the environment, but it's all moving, and that's organic. The inorganic thing is sitting there stagnant. That rock is a rock is a rock. That's all there is to it. You as a fluid energy system, you can serve one of those two gods. If you start serving the god of inorganics, saying that inorganics create everything, and you start consuming the inorganics and the plastics and the salts, then you'll become like that. You won't be able to think differently. You'll be plasticized. Your consciousness will be plasticized. Your entire environment, the way that you respond to things, the way that you interact with things will be completely one-dimensional. That will be the God you will serve. So this is just a little FYI for everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Get yourself involved with living systems. Cleanse yourself so your vibrations can be amplified and multiplied. Just get involved with the things that are living, or not, or continue. If you want to just jump off, you want to just bury yourself again, and as they say, bury yourself in either go into the darkness, or, as most people know, jump your consciousness into another body and start over. You can do that too. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this and find yourself some fruits. Find yourself some things that light you up, that you enjoy. Go dance. Go find some good food. Go cleanse. Have a beautiful day. Talk soon.